Breaking news tonight, a flurry of subpoenas in Governor Christie's bridge scandal, including in the governor's innermost circle. Late today, lawmakers in the Assembly announced they're sending out 20 subpoenas, demanding all documents that could be related to the lane closings, including emails and texts. Among those being served, 17 people and 3 organizations, including the governor's re-election campaign. 2 fired officials are reportedly being served. Former Deputy Chief of Staff Bridget Kelly, who sent the notorious email "Time for some traffic problems in Fort-Lee," and former campaign manager Bill Stepien. All that's on the Assembly side. We're also getting late-breaking word of subpoenas from the state Senate, including 2 high-ranking officials. David Sampson, the chairman of the agency that runs the George Washington Bridge, will be served. He's a very close ally of Governor Christie's, and he's come under intense scrutiny in recent days. Also being served, Regina Argia, Governor Christie's incoming chief of staff, and someone whose name appeared in documents released last week. Of note, early this morning we learned the Christie administration hired legal counsel in the name of assisting the investigation. In a day of fast-moving developments, it's clear the stakes are rapidly increasing. Who else will be subpoenaed? Will we get some answers soon? Joining me live from outside the New-Jersey State House is Assemblyman Gordon Johnson, who is on the Special Investigation Committee, and former U.S. Attorney Kendall Coffee. Assemblyman, this is a wide scope. What can you tell us tonight?
Only that we've just begun our the second phase, I guess, or second part of this investigation. As we stated before, wherever this investigation leads us, that's where we're going to go. So as we go forward, and these subpoenas will be, I guess, delivered to these individuals probably tomorrow, we will then take up the information they bring us and go from there.
Will these go to the Port Authority, to people in the governor's office?
It's a variety. As you mentioned at the top of the show, it is going to individuals and organizations. I would not want to name the individuals that I know of out of respect for them, because they've not been served yet. Tomorrow, of course, after they're served, the list will be made public. But it just goes to show you that the Assembly is serious about getting to the bottom of this abuse of power.
Now, it's been stated, and I repeated in the opening, that you're asking for emails, texts, any kind of documents. How far back are you going?
I believe they're going back to sometime in September in the year 2012, I think, as I heard. So it's going to be an extended research that we're going to be doing. An
extended research, very interesting. Let me ask you, Kendall Coffee. When you hear the leading assemblyman in the investigation say today he's not sure where this could lead, listen to this.
When I started this investigation, I was convinced that we would be looking at the Port Authority and only the Port Authority. And so I'm as surprised as anybody that we're at the point we're at. And so we're going to not omit anything, and we're not going to exclude anything, and we're not going to have any prejudged decisions. We're going to follow the facts wherever they may lead us.
Now, Kendall, you've been involved in investigations. Take us on the inside of a big investigation like this. What are they looking for, and how do they deal with this?
Well, as you were saying, Reverend, time for some subpoenas in New Jersey. And that's a bunch of them right at the beginning. Certainly, they're trying to get personal emails as much as any government emails, and trying to capture text messages, which, as you know, don't stick around forever. With everything that is out there, there's got to be a concern that what can be the most important evidence in an investigation, email, text messages. Those things don't necessarily change the way sometimes a witness's testimony can evolve. That's why they're starting out very aggressively, very expansively with those things. They've obviously identified a number of people that they think have some connection to what they believe was the decision-making. But this does not mean that these 20 subpoenas are the end of it. It could be just the beginning.
Now, let me go back to you a minute, Representative Johnson. Senator Rockefeller asked the Port Authority a series of questions, and the Port Authority's response shows zero evidence of a traffic study behind the GWB, or the George Washington Bridge closures. A letter from the Port Authority, the agency in charge of the bridge, seems to lay the blame on Governor Christie's former appointee, David Wildstein. Now, quote, Mr. Wildstein made it clear that he would control the communication about the toll lanes closures. Mr. Wildstein failed to inform or brief the executive director. So they're pointing fingers at Wildstein. What do you make of this, Mr. Johnson?
Well, when we get this subpoenaed information, these texts that were out there and emails, as you know, when we began this process early on, we thought it originated in the Port Authority. After getting the information that was subpoenaed at the prior meeting, during the prior year, emails led us to the office of the governor's office, the office of the governor. So it's just an interesting. It's going to be an interesting investigation, and it's going to be a thorough investigation that we put forth here. So who knows where we're going to wind up? And as stated before, this is just the beginning of the process. These 20 subpoenas for
now,
informational subpoenas.
Even though we're now at the very beginning of the subpoenas going out, do you feel that this rests a lot of it in the hands of David Wildstein, Representative Johnson?
I'm not sure that where this is going to take us, but I know Mr. Wildstein has supplied, had come before us, as you know, and took the Fifth Amendment. It's obvious that messages came from the governor's office, so it'll be very difficult for me to believe that it will stop at Mr. Wildstein.
Let me go back to you again, Kendall. What are the possible criminal exposure that is faced here by those involved and the governor? Because clearly the Assembly and the Senate investigates on one level, but what are the possible criminal charges, if any, that you think could possibly come from some of this?
Well, we certainly begin by acknowledging that the fact that somebody gets a subpoena, even that something is said about somebody, doesn't mean anybody's guilty. But what I think from the information we've gathered so far, the indications are clear that New Jersey has a law when power, the power that's entrusted to a public servant, is misused deliberately. It's a crime, it's a felony of official misconduct. And I think that while there are federal charges that could be considered if the feds want to get creative, the core criminality, if there's been a crime, is going to be under the New Jersey state laws for misuse of power for an unauthorized reason when it's done intentionally. And that, by the way, Reverend, gets us into a lot of complicated issues in terms of who would be the decision makers with respect to a state criminal investigation. Isn't the Attorney General of New Jersey ultimately in charge, and who appoints that Attorney General?
So if you have, let's follow that for 1 second. If you have the Attorney General in charge, and clearly the Attorney General may have a conflict here because of the governor's potential involvement, then what happens? A special prosecutor? And then who appoints that? The governor?
Well, a special prosecutor could be appointed. New Jersey law permits it. And that is a decision which would involve the concurrent action of the Attorney General with the approval of the governor. Now, the feds may have jurisdiction here, but looking at this as a former prosecutor, it doesn't seem like there's a clear example of a federal crime that would be easy to put together. The most logical charges could be under state law, and that would take us into a complicated thicket in terms of figuring out who can independently handle that kind of investigation.
So, Representative Johnson, with Kevin Dowd having the hold, with the governor having nominated his chief of staff to become Attorney General now being held back, we are seeing potential conflicts on top of conflicts, but at the same time, the Assembly and you are moving forward and the Senate are moving forward, and watching all of this is the possibility of dealing with some criminal matters or not dealing with them, but that in itself will be complicated by the fact that we've got to get somebody on that side that has no conflict of interest.
Yeah, well, what you're saying is very complex, and I guess it's probably true. And I have to rely on the leadership of John Wisniewski, the chair of this committee, and the leadership in the Assembly, as they craft out I guess a plan or a strategy when it gets to that point as to where we go at that point.
Let me ask you this, Kendall. If, in fact, you went over on the state side, you were a prosecutor, and you started to deal with official misconduct, could you charge or look at charging someone with the misuse of government power or state power if, in fact, they didn't have the power and was operating on behalf of someone that did? Because clearly some people that are in this could not have ordered people in the Port Authority to do anything. They had to do it with the inference that they were operating for someone who did have the power.
Well, Reverend, the specifics of the official misconduct laws refer to a public servant, somebody who's working for the government. But you know what they say is a prosecutor's best friend, the laws of conspiracy. And so prosecutors looking at this case would not only consider those who had public power, public authority, but those acting, if there are such other people, in conspiracy with them.
Well, let me repeat what you said. Subpoenas do not mean that anyone did anything wrong here. And we'll see where it goes. Assemblyman Gordon Johnson and Kendall Coffee, thank you both for your time tonight.
Thanks, Reverend.
Thank you, Reverend Sharpton.
Coming up, more on the breaking news. 20 subpoenas are being served. Governor Brian Schweitzer joins me live. And will he cooperate? More on the Christie administration's legal counsel and what might be an appropriate inquiry. Stay with us.